everyone, welcome back to our Maine homestead. Today I'm going to be building a shed addition onto our sheep barn. So I'm standing inside our sheep barn. I built it about 3 years ago. It was the first substantial structure that I built. I haven't built anything this big before, but I based it on how the Amish build their barns, or how their barns are constructed in this area. I went to a friend of mine's house, Amish guy, and kind of looked around in his barn, took a lot of pictures of the bracing, just the basic structure, and then I patterned mine after it. You can see all the gaps in the siding back there. Eventually you could do something like a board and batten and put battens to cover those gaps, but sheep like a cold barn. It doesn't necessarily have to be drafty, and it looks like it would be very drafty, but it's really not. But you don't need a tight, dry barn for sheep. They are very hardy, and they thrive in the cold weather. They kind of struggle a little bit in the heat of summer here. So this is the side door to the sheep barn. This is the door we use during the winter time. This gives the sheep access to the barnyard. And there it's obviously parallel to the pitch of the roof. So we get a lot of snow here. So all of that snow that builds up on the roof comes falling down right in front of this door. And although it's kind of a hassle, it hasn't been a huge problem until this past winter. So that's one of the main reasons that I've decided to build a shed addition. So all that snow comes off the steeply pitched roof, which it needs to be to shed all that snow, and accumulates right here. So in the winter time, there will be a mound of snow that starts right in here somewhere and can get to be 4 feet tall easily. Of course, I shovel some of it, can only do so much, and then sometimes it'll freeze before you get to shoveling it, and then you've got hard packed ice underneath a smaller layer of snow that's on the top. So it can make it very difficult. I've been dealing with it until this past winter. I did deal with it too, but this past winter we had more fluctuating temperatures. So we would have snow, the snow build up, high bank of snow here that I keep shoveled out in the middle, and the sheep keep a lot of it trampled down because they go in and out of this door all day. We leave this door open during the day, and we have a round bale of hay out there, so they're motivated to go eat. So they'll trample through, not 4 feet. They don't let it get that high, but they'll trample and kind of keep it trampled down. I help them out a little bit here and there if I think I need to. But anyway, the fluctuating temperatures would cause it to thaw and then refreeze. And when it would thaw, because of the way the bank would sit, and of course my drainage was kind of shut off because there was a huge mound of snow and frozen ice underneath there, the water had nowhere to go, so it would thaw and build up. And several times this winter it ran into the barn, and then we have a little small ice rink inside the barn. Nothing that we can't deal with. It was not catastrophic or anything like that, but I wanted to try to avoid that and fix that situation, and also not have to shovel in front of this door this winter. Let it be easy access all winter long. So I decided to build an addition where I come off from the existing roof and come down, and all that snow comes off of the big roof, is diverted onto the shed roof, and then is deposited out there. So I may still have to do a little shoveling to help them get to their round bale, but it won't be obstructing the door. I won't have to worry about flooding issues or anything like that. That's the main reason I decided to build the shed roof. Another reason is it also gives me more covered space, so I can store some firewood out here, let it be seasoning for next year. I may park a vehicle or an implement. I've got a mower, a wood splitter, whatever, that just gives me more room to keep things sheltered during the winter. So that's kind of the why. Now I'll show you how I'm building this. So building a shed building, or an addition as in this case, it's a pretty simple structure. I've built a lot of them on the property, and it's not complicated at all. It takes a little thinking, especially if you haven't done it before. I've done a few, so I've kind of gotten it down now, I think. You can see I've got the mule, my trusty movable ladder there that I use for scaffolding, use for a lot of things. But I've already gotten it over there to help me get everything in place. But all I did here is I sunk 4 posts. I kind of lined them up with the 4 posts that make up the structure of the barn. And then I've put girts across the top. Those top girts there are what the rafters will rest on the outside of the structure. Pretty simple situation. And then the rafters will attach underneath the overhang of the barn roof, underneath the metal there, and they come out and rest on top of these girts. I will cut what's called a bird's mouth. I'm not sure if that's what you call what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna notch them so that the rafters will sit down securely on top of these girts, about 2 inches deep. I'm using 2x6s, those are 2x6s. I'm using 2x6s for my rafters, and then I'll come back and place 2x4s as purlins that lay perpendicular to the rafters, and that's what the actual roofing is attached to, and that's basically it as far as the structure. It's not super sturdy. If you're building something like this, you'll realize, even if you're going to close it in, it's not super sturdy until you get everything tied together. Once I get it tied to the barn, it becomes more secure or more stable. Then once I get the purlins on, it becomes even more stable. And then once the roofing is put on, it is rock solid, so it shouldn't be going anywhere for a while. So this is the first rafter that I cut. I cut it to length. I held a board up, decided how long I wanted it, and then while it's up there, I measured where the notch would be. So this is the notch that's going to fit on the top of the girts that are attached to the tops of those posts. All I did is just hold it up there, it sits on top of the girt, and I took a straight edge and measured up how deep I wanted it, roughly 2 inches, and then of course how far up on this side based on the angle. And then so I've got the measurement. I made it actually a little wider than the actual board is, so that you don't have to force it down on there. And when you're going to fit it, you want to make sure it fits. And then I made sure it fitted in several places down the line of those girts before I decide to start cutting, because I need 14 of these, and I'm going to use this one as my template, and I've made sure that it is right. So I made it a little wider than the board, and I'll make the rest of them a little wider, but this will be my template. I will lay it on top of the next rafter, outline the cut that I've made, and then I can make the cut. And then I use a chisel to knock this block out once I've cut the sides and square it off a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but then it will fit right down on those girts. The girt will fit in here into this area, and that will make it very secure. Once it's attached to the barn on one end and to the girt on this end, it's not going anywhere. So my rafters are 11 feet 5 inches long. I've cut one to length that's on the bottom. Then I've placed my pattern rafter, the first one that I cut, and I've already fitted and made sure that it fits all the way across the length of the girts. I've laid it on top. I make sure the end that's up against the barn is even on that end. These are going to be pretty even too, but 11 feet 5 inches doesn't have to be exact. You want them to be, you know, close, but you're not going to be able to tell once they're on the actual roof or you know, situated on the girt. So anyway, once I've got it in position, I make sure it's flush on the bottom here. I'm just going to take a pencil and draw where I'm going to cut out this notch on the second rafter. And you know, you want it to be as close as possible, but you'll be able to tell where that outline is once we remove this board. So I'm just going to take a straight saw and cut these two lines here. Once I get these lines up to where I want them, then I will take a chisel and chisel the top, and I'll show you that. Again, you want to kind of stay on top of the line, or maybe just barely on the outside of the line, to make sure that you have plenty of room in this notch for it to fit on top of the girt. Again, you don't want it to be too sloppy either, so try to keep your cut straight and you know, close enough to the line. But if you go right on that line, you're probably going to have a very snug fit and a really hard time fitting it down on that girt. I've done it before and had to come back and recut them. Also, there are easier and quicker ways than cutting by hand, but these are not very large cuts. It's a beautiful day out, so it's just going to take a little time. Again, I've got 13 more, this one and 12 more to go. So it's going to take a while, but it's you know, it's nice. It's October, it's not too hot, so it should be, you know, should be a fairly quick process. One more to go. And it also gives me a chance to work on cutting with my offhand. I'm right-handed, but I try to do a lot of things left-handed, just as a challenge, and it's not bad. Not bad for you at all. There's some things that I really struggle with, and this is kind of one of them, so good time to get a little practice in. And then both arms are sore the next day. Time for the chisel. This is hemlock, so it chisels very easily. Again, it's green as well, so that makes it's not super dry wood, and had a chance to really harden up. But it's very easy to chisel. Another reason why I'm doing it this way. It's not that difficult. If it was, I'd figure out another way, if I could. There you have it. Also, in case you're wondering, my workbench here is a hay feeder that my Amish friend, the one that I kind of based my barn design, or the barn structural design on. My Amish friend and his son came over one day in their horse and buggy, of course, and we built this. It's about 10 feet long, and it will, you know, probably feed 30 sheep or so. We only have 10 right now. We don't know how many we'll end up with, but anyway, it's very useful for a lot of other things. It's very sturdy. I don't have any video of us building it because we don't video the Amish, of course. But if you're interested, I can do a video. Shoot us a note in the comments and just ask. But I could do a video on the design, kind of how it's built, and, you know, the thought process of why certain things are done certain ways. So if you're interested in that, let us know, and we'll see if we can't put a video together, kind of a survey video for you. So here are my 14 rafters with the bird's mouth cut into each one. It really only took 2 or 3 minutes on each bird's mouth. It was pretty quick work, and now it's ready to start putting the rafters up. So I've attached all the rafters up at the barn, and then I put these strips, they're about 2 feet long, 2x4s, and nailed them to the next girt down from where the rafters are attached, just for a little more support to make sure we don't have anything hopefully coming down over the winter. There's a good snow load coming off that barn, so I just wanted to overbuild, I guess, and I usually do try to do that. So now I'm going to attach the other end of the rafters to the girts out here. So here we are up on the ladder. Here's where the rafters come out and end, and here's where they are going to attach to the girt. So all I've done is just start a couple of nails where they're going to be nailed into the rafter. And that's to do a couple of things. Keep them in line, number one, but also keep them from raising up. There's a good bit of weight once you get the rafters, the purlins, which is next, and then the roofing on. There's a lot of weight there, but you still want to do everything you can to keep it anchored down. It can't act like a sail, obviously, and so I'm going to do everything I can to be sure it stays here. And one of those things is just toe nailing in to the rafter, through the rafter into the girts. So I'm going to do that, go all the way down, and then the rafters will be done, and it's time to put the purlins on. Also, in case you're curious, these are the nails I've been using for this project. These are called sinker nails. That's what the local Amish call them. I don't know if there's another word or not, another term. But these are 20D, so they're 4 inches long, not 40 inches, 4 inches long. And they're coated with kind of a glue type substance. So when you drive them into the wood, the heat that's generated, and if you've driven many nails, it gets hot, the friction driving through the wood, but the heat softens up and loosens up the material that it's coated with, and then that just helps it stay in place better. But these are 20D sinkers, and so I'm using 4-inch nails throughout this whole project until we get to putting the roof on. So I got the rafters attached at the girts, and then now I've put up 1 row of purlins, and I want to show you that. But I wanted to just briefly touch on the purpose of purlins. There's 2 reasons. One, so before you have purlins on, once you have your rafters on, and this is the barn behind me, the rafters are running this way. Once the rafters are attached and you know, installed, they're on there, you cannot move that building this way. You'd have to move the barn or pull the rafters off the barn. Hopefully that's not going to happen. But you can shake it side to side because the rafters are running in this direction and there's no structural support side to side. There is some. You've got the posts, you've got the barn, there's a lot of things, but it's not strong enough. So the purlins are going to run perpendicular to the rafter. So here's a rafter, the purlins sit on top of the rafter perpendicular. So they're going to provide 2 things, like I said. One, they're going to provide that side-to-side support. So once you get those purlins on there, you've basically got a grid made up of the rafters and the purlins. And so it's not going to move. It's going to be much more stable side to side. May move a little. Everything moves a little. So that's one reason. The other thing, purpose that it gives you is it gives you a place to nail the roofing to. And I'll show you that when I put the roofing on. But with just the rafters and the roofing running the same way, this corrugated roofing has peaks and valleys, or like flat areas that are, you know, 5 or 6 inches wide, and then a peak, and then a little flat area, and then a peak. So without purlins, you don't have a consistent way to screw the roofing in to the structure. So once you put the purlins on, the purlins running this way and the roofing running this way, it gives you a consistent place to screw the roofing in to anchor it down. So you'll have a line of screws along each purlin. So those are the 2 purposes of the purlin. I'll show you kind of what I've done. I've just put 1 row up. I think I'm going to put 4 rows total, spaced about 2.5 feet apart. on up the roof, and I put the first purlin on at the edge of the roof so that I can use it to stand on, lean on, whatever, to put the next row of purlin up, and then I'll climb up on that next row of purlins and put the next row up, and so on until I get to the top. But that's basically it. So now it's just a matter of putting up the next 3 rows of purlins, and then I'll be ready to put the roofing on. Let me show you the purlin real quick. So here's the girt. There's the rafters coming from the barn up there, coming down this way. And then they are perpendicular to the rafter are the purlins, where the purlins are going to sit. And I've already nailed these in. They're good to go. I put them about 5 inches from the ends of the rafters, so that's the last point of attachment for the roofing. And the roofing will overhang the rafters about 3 inches or so. So that gives you about 8 inches from the last point to where the roofing ends. One other thing I didn't say about the purlins, if you were going to build a house or something with a solid roof structure, so these purlins, obviously they're going to be spaced 2.5, in this case 2.5 feet apart. But if you were building something that's going to have a solid roof underneath the roofing, you would have sheathing, so like sheets of plywood, whatever it might be, tongue and groove, it can be anything. And that's going to form a solid roof to which the roofing will then be attached. Obviously, you don't need purlins in that case. You could lay that straight out on the rafters. You just may have to adjust your rafter spacing depending on, you know, what you're building, how steep the roof is, what kind of snow load. Here we have a big snow load. But that's the other thing about purlins. You don't necessarily need purlins if you're going to build a solid roof structure. But almost everything I've built around here has no solid roof. The roof is open all the way up. You see the underside of the roofing panels from the inside. So I just thought I'd share that.
Hi, Punky.
So the purlins are on. I cut the tops of the posts off so that they're below the level of the purlins so that the roofing will lay flat all the way down. Now all that's left is to place the roofing panels, screw them in place, and it's built. So the roof is on. That finishes this up. One of my posts encroached a little bit on my chicken run, so I just attached the chicken run fence to it, and I went ahead and hung the gate on that post, sunk another post as a place to latch it, and then now it's under cover, so there won't be any snow to deal with, or very little snow to deal with when going in and out of the chicken coop as well. So that kind of takes care of two things. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment in the comment section, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon.